We're talking about cystic fibrosis today here on My Window. Joining me now with more is Leslie Clark. She is the chairman of Central Oregon Great Strides, and Dan Meyer, who is from Redmond and was born with cystic fibrosis. So welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
So Dan, I'm going to pick on you first then. So what is, I hear cystic fibrosis, I think, oh, okay, I don't know exactly what that is. What is it?
So cystic fibrosis is a genetic disorder that has to do with the chromosomes, and what it does is it creates a thicker mucus, usually in your lungs and in your pancreas, and so it causes breathing problems and it can cause digestive problems. And as you get older in age, then that damage can then ruin your lung capacity and shorten your life.
And you actually are not the only one in your family with this disease, correct?
Correct. I have 3 brothers, and the 3 brothers also have it. I have 2 sisters who did not have it. So.
Wow. And were all of you born with it? All the brothers?
All 4 boys, yes.
Okay. And so you've been dealing with this your entire life. You don't know a life without cystic fibrosis.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
But you've been involved in trials and all sorts of things, right?
Yeah, with trials with medications and nebulized medications, and up until recently, and then I had trial and had a lung transplant. So
Wow.
to fix the problem that the drugs weren't working anymore. So yeah.
Is that pretty typical at a certain point? They just stop working?
It varies person to person. There's degrees definitely for how bad the genetic disorder can damage your lungs. And for me, luckily for me, most of my childhood growing up, I had really healthy lungs. And then as I got older in my late 20s, then I had an impact on my lungs, and then I needed a transplant. But yeah, many people with cystic fibrosis will eventually need a lung transplant.
So I'm trying to figure what this is like for you. Is it like for us not being able to take a full breath? Is that what it feels like?
It feels like you can take a full breath, but you're not getting oxygen. You're taking a big, deep breath, but there's not oxygen there that's exchanging. And a lot of people compare it to like if you run real quick and then you try to breathe through a straw. You're taking a deep breath, but then you're not feeling like you're getting enough air, even though you are breathing.
Okay, and Leslie, this is a very personal thing for you as well, isn't it?
Yes, it is. My granddaughter, who is 4.5, was diagnosed with CF when she was 10 days old. And she started on treatments, inhalers, nebulizers, vest treatments when she was 2 years old. So my daughter-in-law calculated it up, and in 2 years she's done 1,095 hours of treatments, which is 45 straight days of sitting down doing treatments.
For a 2 to 4 year old, that's difficult.
For a 2 to 4 year old.
Wow.
Very challenging, and that's twice a day that she does an hour's worth of treatments.
And so, Dan, it sounds like you were luckier or more fortunate on that aspect that you didn't have to start treatments right away.
Correct, yeah. Fairly healthy lungs growing up, so the genetic disorder didn't affect my lungs as much until I got into my late teens and then into 20s.
But for your granddaughter, totally different story.
Yes, she was hospitalized for the first time last year. It was 3 weeks at Dornbecker, and they did a bronchoscopy and found that she had permanent damage to her lower left lung, which was shocking for us because she'd been doing treatments for 2 years. We'd hoped that it would not start happening until she was much older. But like Dan said, every person with CF is affected differently. There's over 1,000 mutations of CF, and each one is different.
Is there a cure?
There is not. It is genetic, so it's really not curable. They're developing drugs that have actually addressed it at the cellular level. It only works on one mutation. So about 1,200 people in the 30,000 CF population in the United States benefits from the current drug on the market. But the foundation is funding research into some new drugs where they will combine with this first drug they developed last year called Kalydeco, and they're hoping that it will address the primary mutations of CF that most of the population has.
So that's why the community can get involved in helping our friends and neighbors with cystic fibrosis by participating in Great Strides, right?
Absolutely.
Tell me about
that. Great Strides is a national event put on by the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. There's about 600 of them across the country. 90 cents of every donated dollar to the foundation goes to fund research and care centers and the clinical trial systems that the foundation has. They are a nonprofit organization, and they're one of the first in ever to do what's called venture philanthropy, where they take all the donated dollars that they receive and they invest it into the research companies to develop the drugs.
Wow.
CF and many other diseases are called orphan diseases because they only affect a small percentage of the population. So pharmaceutical companies won't pick them up because they don't make enough money
Sure.
off of them. So this has been very successful. Since 1999, they have contributed $315 million to drug research alone.
Wow. Well, and you say it's, you know, an orphan drug affects such a small part of the population, but when you're part of that small part of the population,
It's a big deal.
It's a big, big deal.
Big deal.
And it's a big deal to you, and it's a big deal to your family
Yes.
as well. So when is Great Strides?
Great Strides is June 15th.
Okay.
It's at Sam Johnson Park in Redmond.
Okay. And they
Check
can-
in 9 o'clock, walk at 10. It's a 5K walk in the Dry Canyon
And they can
Trail.
sign up online
Yes,
through the website.
yes.
Yeah. And I appreciate you both coming in today. Thank you so much.
But thank you for having us.
Thank you, appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thank you. Right now we're going to check in with John Hammerly. He's going to show us how to do it yourself, a palate guard.